Hey, welcome back to the show. If you've been following along, the last couple of episodes have been about something that I see happening in a lot of growing companies, especially when things are really moving faster than they used to be. We started to talk about this idea of transferable ownership, what it is, why it matters, and what happens when growth starts to outrun how responsibility is actually transferred from person to person. So if you didn't catch episodes 78 and 79, it might be worth backing up and listening to those because that's where this whole idea really started to take shape. Today, in episode 80, I want to move into the part that most leaders eventually ask me about. How do I actually do it in my team? How do I do it with my staff? How do I do it across my company? Now, without a system for ownership to transfer from person to person, in a typical business, you would see this. Someone is given a new responsibility. There's this air of, hey, I hope this works by everybody that's involved. And then almost immediately, there are way more questions than answers. And there's more involvement that's needed than anyone really expected to be. And that's the part that I want to talk with you about today. How ownership actually begins to transfer from one person to another without creating all of that extra work and even the embarrassment if it goes wrong. And one of the things that I've seen happen repeatedly when a leader starts trying to transfer ownership to another person is that they tend to transfer the responsibility before they transfer the expectations and the purpose behind it. Most of the time, it happens just because the business is moving pretty fast. There's more work than there used to be. There's more opportunity that they're trying to capitalize on. And then this whole idea of handing things off, it feels like the right move so that we can keep going so that their time is more freed up. What gets missed, though, is the setup of it. And maybe it's not so much that it gets missed, but maybe it gets cut pretty short, which that doesn't lead to confidence, let alone a feeling of preparedness for the person who's now taking on that new level of ownership, that new responsibility. So you need to start with creating clarity about what success actually looks like. And this includes the outcomes that you're trying to produce, the timeline that you're working inside, the role that that person is expected to play. They might be leading, maybe they're facilitating, maybe they're the ones that are actually doing the work themselves. And knowing where to go when they hit resistance or when they need help is crucial. See, when that clarity, when that level of understanding exists, ownership has somewhere to land. But without it, it just feels really uncertain from the start. It doesn't get off to a good beginning at all. But then there's another piece that carries a little bit more weight than I think most leaders might realize. People do need to understand the why. They need to understand why something was handed to them in the first place. Why was I chosen? Why was I trusted with this? That actually changes how that person approaches the work. Because when people know why they were entrusted with a new responsibility, they step into it differently. They have a different level of confidence. There's a sense that someone saw something in them and they decided to hand it over to them. See, those moments, those are important. They truly matter because ownership begins to feel more legitimate when trust is made visible. And when that happens, people stop circling around the work. They step into it. Now, the third piece that separates smooth transfers from, say, awkward ones is simply this: preparedness. Handing work over without preparation puts people into situations that they haven't had enough time to think through yet. More often than not, that creates a sense of insecurity for them and doubt and a little bit of fear. Preparation covers that. It means talking through the challenges that usually show up, talking about the pressure points that tend to slow things down, or the decisions that become harder once the work is underway. When people are prepared for what they're likely to face, their hesitation reduces. Their movement becomes a little bit more steady. Their progress is more predictable because fewer surprises are catching them off guard. Now, don't miss this. Preparation, it does not eliminate the difficult nature of the responsibility, but it does remove uncertainty about what the difficulty looks like. Again, that leads to a higher level of confidence for the person taking it on. Now, when this is done well, you'll start noticing some intangibles that don't show up on paper right away. You'll notice that the work seems to move a little easier. Tasks, they're getting completed without your constant involvement. And here's what's kind of cool. Progress starts to build without every step coming back through you. Questions still happen, but they're fewer, they're more focused, And I've had leaders describe it to me in pretty simple terms. Things are getting done around here. I'm not in the middle of everything anymore. And one thing they really enjoy is that they're not answering questions all day long. And that's usually the moment when ownership starts to feel like it's transferred. Now, this doesn't happen because the leader washed their hands clean and disappeared and said, hey, you got this, you're on your own. It actually happens because all of that groundwork made that person's independence, their level of ownership, actually possible. And then this is the ultimate reward for you and others around the company. It becomes part of your team's culture. That means in the evening, y'all can sit back and rest well, knowing you've left it better.